Welcome to the People Powered Community Podcast, where we dive into the inspiring stories of go-to-market professionals who have leveraged their skills to create strong and lasting connections within their community. Get ready to be inspired and learn how you too can harness your business superpower for good.
Hello and welcome to the People Powered Community Podcast. I'm your host, Leslie Greenwood, the CEO and founder of Chief Evangelist Consulting. And today I'm here with Nisha Baxi, the head of digital customer success and community at Gong. Nisha, so glad to have you.
Yes, so great to be here, Leslie. Appreciate you thinking of me.
Of course, of course. So a little story on how Nisha and I met, which I like to start off with, is she was speaking at this CS 100 conference that I went to, which was amazing, and in Sundance, Utah, I think one of the most beautiful places I've ever been. And so, of course, at a CS conference, and there's someone in the community talking, of course, I accosted her right after the event and made sure she knew who I was so that we could talk later. And she's been kind enough to chat with me about all things community. And then I think we send each other random emails from time to time about something, probably work stuff, and then it somehow delves into some other kind of stuff, and then we start over another time.
We're just pen pals. We're pen pals.
There you go. We'll go for that. Go with that. But we should meet in person again, and actually have a coffee someday. So we'll definitely add that to the list of things to do. So, well, today we're going to talk at length about your superpower, how that relates to community, which is going to be very easy since you work in community. But before we get into that main intro, I'm actually a little curious if you could describe to us what digital CS looks like at Gong, and if you think that that digital CS at Gong looks like other places, because I know CS in itself doesn't look the same in most places. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, this is a hot topic, I think, for customer success people these days. For me, when I think about what digital customer success achieves, it's really achieves air cover for every user of our entire in our entire portfolio. So our CSMs can handle, a multitude, dozens and dozens of accounts, or they can handle one or two, but with hundreds of licenses. So how do you make sure that all of these users are really understand and get the value out of our product? And digital CS provides that air cover. So making sure that we've got, nurture, working with our marketing team and making sure that there are nurture emails. We're working with our product team, making sure that we have, good journey and guidance that are happening in product. And then even our ops team, they're really working on really scaling a lot of our long tail, our SMB customers. And so really just having that sort of holistic perspective. And I think having that perspective is sort of the second part of the job, is that governance piece of it. So none of these teams report to me. I just am in their RACI or their rapid. So I'm informed. I know about what's happening. I also can make recommendations or suggestions based on some of our strategic advice that's given to us from our ELT, for example. But yeah, I mean, for me, it's really just about understanding, who is touching our customer and when. And for me personally, I decide whether I understand whether or not I want to, lead a project, follow, or get out of the way is what I've been telling everyone.
Okay.
So I'm not trying to, to replicate things that are already happening if they're going really well. Like if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But also understand so that, now that Gong has 1,200 employees and we've got thousands and thousands and thousands of customers, just making sure that every customer has some touch, some experience so that they're getting value. So that's digital CS.
There you go.
And I can actually share how that connects with community if that's
helpful. I would. I was thinking about that because I'm like, okay, so what's that look like compared to regular community? Do you still do the engagement things on the digital CS that you would do in regular community? Or let's just go right into that, and then you can introduce yourself and tell us all about you.
Yeah, totally. No, it's a dual. I think it's actually really awesome that I have this opportunity, because I built the Gong community, now the Visioneer community. And the idea was we wanted our customers to be able to connect. It was a post-sale community, but we wanted them to be able to connect and learn from each other and talk to each other
Mhm.
and share best practices. And you can only, even with such an amazing program, you can only derive as much value from it as people that know about it, right? So there
Mhm,
is
mhm.
an awareness thing, there's an awareness piece, and there's an engagement piece. So you have to engage, like you have to bring people to the party, and you're throwing an awesome party all the time, and people that get there will learn and understand, and will it'll make an impact for them. But you got to bring people to the party.
Mhm.
And so I looked at all of our customer like facing experiences and programs, and there aren't super clear and distinct ways that we're nurturing people and moving, creating awareness into the help center at the right article at the right time, into our academy to the right people at the right time, into the community to the right people at the right time. And so when thinking about, well, how do I create more awareness? Because that's what I always used to say. Like when you think about creating community, there's got to be awareness and then there's got to be engagement. And so when I was thinking about how do we really make an impact on the awareness piece of it, I'm like, oh, this is digital CS. It's not just about
Mhm.
me and the community and what I built. It's about all of it. It's we
Mhm.
have these amazing set of resources, but it needs to be served up at the right time. So there needs to be some personalization. It needs to be predictive, and that takes a lot of time to build.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's hopefully eventually where we're going. So we do have all these great things. We have all the things. Um,
Mhm.
we just want to make sure that everybody knows about all the things at the right time.
I think getting people to understand even the most important things sometimes are challenging. I mean, just the digital input that everybody has all day. So, like, if you're dripping that information on them in different stages of their journey, and then they go and move into your customer community where they start getting the engagement and the best practices, like, that's a really great idea. So, love to follow that. I am going to say I keep back here on my board a list of quotes from guests, and your lead, follow, or get out of the way is going on my board. I have had personal challenges getting myself in or out of the right stages, so that's just very clear and very direct. And I'm going to definitely take that away from our conversation.
Yeah, I mean, my dad is full of those quotes. So I'm sure I'll say more things like that during this podcast, and
Oh,
I'll just
there's
attribute it to my dad now.
There's plenty of room on my whiteboard, so
Okay,
we can just keep going on that.
yes.
Well, tell us a little bit about you and how you got to Gong, and I know you've had a really long run in community, so I'd love to hear kind of where that started as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe it's best to start from the beginning, and
Okay.
actually, because this is about people, I can just share that I'm just a very naturally like extroverted extrovert. I've
Mm.
always been that way. I love bringing people together, people in different groups. I love connecting them to each other. It makes me happy. I love, and you're going to ask me this later, but I'll bring it up. I'll just bring it up again, I'll pre-bring it up. Is that I love to like hype other people up, and I know what they're working on. I know what makes them special. And anytime I meet someone and I know so much about, and I introduce people, these two people to each other, I always will tell them like, oh, this is what's so great about them. And they've done this and they've accomplished X, Y, Z. And, um, and then I connect these two people, which then I know they're like, of course they're going to want to talk to each other because I figured out a connection point between them. Plus, they're also completely amazing in the different things that they do. And so I always just thought, wouldn't that be really cool if I could just do more of that? And when I graduated from school, from undergrad in 2007, I had a couple of different roles. But the second job that I ever had when I graduated was, and actually, I don't know if I've ever told the story in a podcast, so you get to hear it
Ooh,
here first.
okay.
But um, I used to go to this meetup when meetup.com was huge. I mean, I think it still is a pretty big thing. But there was a really cool meetup called Silicon Valley New Tech, and it was just other tech people that would connect with other tech people, and they would do a demo, like a 5-minute demo of like some really cool SaaS product, get feedback from the audience, and then there was a networking session. And I used to go to that because I was the only marketer at my the startup company that I was at with 12 people. We had our head of marketing and me, but I was the only person like feet on the street.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to meet other people. And so I I used to go to that for about a year, and then they asked, well, hey, like, is there somebody that wants to actually run this meetup? Because the person who had been running it was like moving to Singapore to be a VC. Now he's like very fancy, and if you Google him, you'll see him, you know, articles and articles about Vinny Loria. He's just an amazing guy. But he, after interviewing dozens of people, he selected a fellow by the name of Joe Robinson, who's now the CEO of Hummingbird, and myself to run this meetup. And we ran it together for half a decade. I got another person on board. So, and I ran this meetup for fun for almost a decade. And it was every single month. And I grew the meetup from 1,000, 2,000 people to like 15,000 people, maybe more.
Oh, wow.
I lost track after a while. But it was so much fun. And it was just fun bringing people together to talk about technology. And this was before there was TechCrunch, Disrupt, and Demo Day, and all these other things. Like, there was none of that had really existed. That's why I thought it was important to share the year that I graduated,
I'm like,
2007.
wait, 2008. I mean, basically, you're like, tech was, I mean, obviously in the infancy compared to what we're looking at today.
Yeah, I mean, it was really cool. Like, people were building apps and it had really great. I mean, mobile apps was really like the cool thing. I remember when like Gowalla was like, do you remember Gowalla and
Mm-mm.
like Foursquare and Looped and all these companies? Like, that was such a big deal. And I used to be like the app queen. I knew all the apps. I downloaded all of them. I was just so obsessed with all of it. Anyway, so what brought me to here was someone at Microsoft approached me and said, you could actually get paid for doing this. Like, are you interested in,
You're like,
working for us in developer evangelism, actually? And so,
really?
yeah, in the evangelism team. And I said, yeah, that sounds really great. I'm so in. If this is what my life is like, it's just an extension of myself, all about it. And that's how I got into developer marketing and developer communities and evangelism. And I did that for a decade. And I did that at Facebook and at Salesforce and at Microsoft. I was Microsoft 5.5 years. And then found my way into a startup as their head of marketing. They're now Series C company. I was employee number 8, Monte Carlo. And then I just, I love doing all of it, but I just love community. Just
Mm-hmm.
love bringing people together. I mean, I always knew sales. I know I'd be great at sales. Know I'd be great at business development. Know I'd be good at anything partnerships. Know that I'd be great in community. I'm at a point in my life where I'm like, I know that I'm good at those things, and I can say that very confidently.
Mm-hmm.
And when I had this chance at Gong to build and because I also like to build. That's the other thing about me is like, yes, I love connecting people, but I also like to like create something and then watch it grow. And so I got to build and launch the Gong community, now Visionaire community, and then now I get to like really build and nurture this digital CS motion. It's not necessarily a department, but it's a motion. It's a way of thinking.
Mm-hmm.
It's a way of doing. So that's your long answer.
No, that's great. I mean, it's just interesting to see that like very early community spark and for you to understand, at your age, like what you're good at. And I'm so very happy you just claimed it. It's like, oh yeah, I'm kind of good at this. Or I'm like, no, I'm freaking good at this. And, so kudos for you on that. But then like being able to follow your passion. So for me, as I was transitioning out of my last role into this one, I mean, I came in as customer success. I'm like, do I love customer success? Or do I love this aspect of community that I accidentally fell into as part of this role? And I walked out, and it was very clear to me that it was the community aspect that I love, that I'm passionate about, that I'm like, okay, if I could just do this all day and have this feeling of making these connections and creating these spaces for people to make those connections, then I'm like, all, all, all day long, sign me up.
Yep. Well, you're great at it. You're an amazing, community, member of the community, builder of community, bringer of people together, community, pen pal. So
Yes, thank you. Thank you, and I did not pay her to say that, folks. Um,
she did it.
awesome. Well, now let's talk a little bit about your superpower. So everybody, I believe that everyone has a superpower. I don't believe that people see superpower are B2B marketing or amazing at enterprise sales. That is not someone's superpower. Superpower is somewhere deeper inside of you that comes out. And then that enables you to do your job, your work, your life in a different way. So tell us a little bit about what your superpower is.
Yeah, my superpower is quantifying the ROI of all of my business. My
Oh,
business.
stop it.
No, 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 not at all. Yeah, I mean, I have to do that so that I get to keep my job.
Sure.
But no, honestly, I think it's what I said earlier. I think it's really being a hype woman, and there are people that are like really good, like listeners, and that can like really hear what it is you're saying, and are probably amazing at discovery and sales calls and implementation and all of that. But for me, it's I see someone for who they are, and I see what their superpower is, and I just get excited about it, and I'm so happy that I can identify that, and then I hype them up on it, and I'm like, I can tell that you are so empathetic, and you so deeply care about these three things, and I love this about you, and I will tell everybody all about it, and I think that that gets people excited and gives people energy, and I'm good at that. So if you need energy, if you're feeling crappy, if you're in a down mood about yourself, about work, about anything, everybody that knows me well knows that they can come to me and they can get that.
Mhm.
And so for other things, maybe I'm okay at that. But this is like, if you need someone to be on your side and to tell you that you are a badass and you can get anything done because of these reasons, and not be fake about it. Be like, I know
Right.
you. I know that you're
Right.
good at these three things. You've done crazier and dealt with crazier shit in the past. You'll be fine. You'll be fine. And so that's how I like to hype people up. So
Well,
that's me in a nutshell.
Well, now I know how to get better ROI out of our pen pals.
Oh, good.
I'm gonna write you on the days that I'm just like, I don't think I can do this. I don't know anything about community. No one loves me. You know what I mean? Or not that, but I mean, that's when I'm gonna send you my pen pal note. I think it's interesting because you said you were an extroverted extrovert,
Mhm.
that you have so much of this like hype inside you that like you have to get it out to go hype other people because like you've got to send that extroversion into other places.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. I mean, because I've heard people being like, I'm an extroverted introvert. I'm an introverted extrovert. And I'm like, none of those apply to me. Like, I'm totally extroverted all the way through and through. But like, yes, I obviously do need to like take a nap on that couch every once in a while because I like hype. There's too much hype and I need to like take a nap, and I'm also human. But I do think that it's if you have a superpower, if you know that you're really good at something, you must use it for good, for the greater good. And for me, that's how I feel. People are having a down day, even people I don't know. If I see them and I'm like, hey, are you okay? Like,
Mm.
I'll just ask, because people want to be seen, and if people want to share, I'm happy to listen. And I don't know, because I feel like I'd want someone to ask me, and not everyone feels comfortable, and so because I do, I just do it, and they're like, I'm fine, okay, cool, I get it. Or like, oh my god, I've just been dying, like someone to notice. I've been on 8 calls today, and I've been feeling like poo poo face, and you're the only
Mhm.
person to ask me. Okay, let's chat.
You're
Let me
almost the embodiment of what community, you know, can be, is that safe place that you can go and share something if it's in a trusted space and get some, validation, feedback, understanding from a group of people. It's just that like it's the community of Nisha.
uh-huh. Yeah, like actually I think of it like, here's another thing for my dad is the way that he thinks about people is very much, have you ever heard of Friends of Bill? Like Bill Clinton, he
Mm-mm.
had like a Rolodex. So he had something called Friends of Bill, or like FOBs, I think is what it's called. But he would have a Rolodex of everybody, their name, and then on the back of it, or like an index card, I think it was, and then he would write down things that he knew about them. So he would remember, like, these are the 25 people that I met in the past hour. He'd like create quick cards, and he would study them and he would remember them. And that's why he was such a great politician. And he knew of so many people, was because he studied them, because he was interested in them genuinely. And so he had
Mm-hmm.
Friends of Bill. And I think that if people try, and you don't have to be amazed, like Bill Clinton was also really smart and had a great memory and was a Rhodes Scholar and all of that, but you don't have to be like Bill Clinton to remember these things about people. You can put it in an Excel spreadsheet and just write it down, and then when you see them, be like, hey, how's your daughter, how's your cat, you know
Mm-hmm. Yep.
hey, if your daughter's still wearing that backpack that you got her from CS 100, just remember, just write it down,
True.
don't forget.
True.
you know
True. It's funny. I was talking to Heather Fay from the community at Six Sense,
Mhm.
and we were talking about this yesterday. And I'm like, yeah, all of my HubSpot notes start with, "They were so nice. They seem like a good human. They really did something." Like, there's no data in any of the first notes in my HubSpot. They're some kind of miscellaneous fact, whether I thought that they were nice or maybe reserved, or there's something about them in my all of my notes.
Yeah, that's really, I mean, that's an insight. Like I literally have, I think maybe that's even one step deeper in a way than being like, you have a cat. It's like, hey, like, sounds like, Leslie has been having a tough month because she has allergies in April. So just check in April to see how she's doing because of her bad
Yeah.
allergies, like, anyway. But I think
Yeah.
that's great. Anything that helps provide context on a person and helps shape them is important. And that's how, we are all connected to each other. And everyone's like, yeah, robots are the future and all of that. I'm like, yeah, but who built the robots? People.
Yeah.
um, and who builds the algorithm for the robots? We do. Like,
Hmm.
it's the data that we provide, it's the data that we say matters, and that is powered by people, and a diverse group of people at that. So that's important
People
as well,
powered.
is me.
So you're saying people powered is important.
And it comes back to why Leslie is amazing and is so important. People powered.
So we're talking people powered community. Well, I'm curious, when did you know that this professional hype woman, by the way, y'all, she did call herself a professional hype woman, not the professional hype woman. When did you know, like, when did that like start to come to you that like, this is something I get a lot of joy out? Was it only like, were you older? Did you see that earlier in your life?
I think I always did it, and I didn't know what it was until, and I don't know why this person comes to mind, but my college roommate Monica, she always, she just has like the greatest laugh, and she is just the most wonderful, kind-hearted person. She lives in Florida. She's a physician, and she is always like, Anisha, you just like always know how to like make people feel good about themselves. She always tells me, and she's the kind of person, and I think she has a little bit of this hype woman in her as well.
Mhm.
But I feel like when you hear something so many times, you're like, wait, this must be true. Like, I've heard people say this. And I think she said it to me when we lived together. She said it to me enough to where, hey, like, you really know how to make people feel like belonged and like connected and happy and excited. Like, I know how to excite people. And so I think that was probably when I realized,
Mm.
oh, like, this is actually something that I do. Because, I'm going to be real with you. When life happens and horrible things happen to people, I am not the first person that they will call. There
Mm.
are people that are better listeners and will like empathize and sit down with them. And I can do that. I will do that. But I also
Mhm.
want to get into solution mode or make them feel better. And so that's kind of a double-edged sword there.
Yeah.
But if people are like, walking into a tough conversation with their manager, if people are really like nervous about, getting on stage because they're about to do a stand-up routine, they'll come talk to me. Come talk to
There,
me.
you're there.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, if Monica, if she ever listens to this, which she won't because she's a physician, maybe I'll send it to her. But I think she's the person who probably, I think my parents probably told me like, "Oh, you're really good at this, and we're so proud of you." But I think when somebody outside of your parents is like, "This is something that makes you unique,"
Mm-hmm.
then you really, it really starts to validate. You really kind of get that third party validation that you need.
And good for you for hearing it and accepting it and not like dismissing it. Like maybe it took you a couple years to get there, but that,
Yeah,
you're just like, oh yeah, okay, I got it, you know?
yeah.
Well, I'm curious how you integrate your superpower into how you think about and participate in community, whether that's from your, your personal life or even, even your work life. Like, how does that professional hype woman? I guess let me clarify. How does the professional hype woman
Mhm.
integrate with how you think about Gong's community or how you think about community building in general?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. Like, I think that it is. First of all, it is a delicate balance, right? Because sometimes I can get so energized about something that I'm talking about something and I'm not really listening. Like what I was saying
Mhm.
before, like I'm not really like sitting and trying to understand the root, or I'm just so wanting to build that relationship that I'm not like thinking about like what it is that we're trying to solve for. So I need somebody to kind of balance me out a little bit and be like, these are all the data points. This is what we're trying to solve for. This is how we should focus on impact. And then like the what, and then the how piece, I've got that nailed. Like
Mm.
how, like, okay, we can do this. We'll rally these people. I'll talk to these people, and I have relationships with these people. These people, like, I can crush the how any day of the week. And it's the what piece that I've always kind of been like, all right, I need someone to kind of help me think about that. And actually,
Mhm.
and I also want to give a shout out to my ops business partner who is amazing and has been instrumental in like really launching the digital CS, Sonam Tabulkar, and she is very much like that what for me. Like she's the what, I'm the how. Together we have it. Like we may not have it all together, but together we have it all. You know that quote.
Right. Right.
Another one for your board if that's not already like lodged deep in the crevices of your
Going, definitely
hippocampus.
going.
Yeah.
Um, I think it's so interesting. So I wonder if, and I've, kind of just getting into this like deep into the community space,
Yeah.
um, because I think there are data minded people. There seem to be people have to be kind of data minded, but I think you're just like perfectly built for this role because of that. Like you can see when you talk about those connections and your ideas, like how much your face lights up,
Mhm.
that like your passion for that part really just zeroes in on the part of community that I think sometimes people forget about is that connection drives almost everything. Whether it's and it could be connection to your product, it could be all those great resources that Gong gives people, but like the thing that brings them back, minus a support question or a success question, is somehow what you've made them feel within the community, at least in my opinion.
Yeah.
And obviously, I think that you embody that. Like that's something you are definitely keeping top of mind when you're thinking about and strategizing your community.
Oh, absolutely. And but I also know like, and it's actually been really sad to see, the past many months we've seen a lot of community people in their roles lose their jobs. And a lot of it is because the company is not seeing the business impact that the community has created, or the community, the folks in the community roles haven't shown it, or there's just some disconnect with that. And I've been working long enough to know that that was like the first thing that I needed to make sure that was possible, was connecting those dots. Is I'm like, I can do the how, but like I need to make sure these, like the what piece and the data piece is really really solid. And because if I can't show ROI on this piece of it, it's never going to work, and people won't trust me. Because and people want to, you have like, trust but verify.
Hmm.
It's like they want to trust you. They see good results, but they want to verify that. They want the feedback loop of knowing that it's actually making a difference. And any human being would actually want that. I don't blame anyone for wanting to see that. And so that's what I built into the DNA of the community, and that's why I partnered so closely with with our ops team and my ops business partner Sonam and her team. Chris Fernandez was just amazing and fantastic. Is I was like, Chris, like these are the things that I'm trying to quantify, and I know, and he always calls it like the cause. He's like, okay, there's the causation correlation genie, like
Mhm.
it comes out. But I said, I know that I can't necessarily draw a causation, but what if I am able to put together like 10 different correlations that show that community is impactful? And he was like, absolutely. And we built an entire dashboard within Salesforce that actually quantified the ARR influence that the community had. Because it was an open community, but it's for our customers. And we could see people going to the community, engaging, signing up as non-customers, then becoming customers later. So we were a
Mhm.
touch point in the sales cycle. So I can check anytime someone's a touch point in the sales cycle. And I can literally just pull up a report right now. I've got a little tab open here. I could just press a button and I can be like, this is how much money that the community's influence. And everyone agrees. Good job. Like that's a thing.
Mhm.
And we have multiple different dashes that are like that around people spend more time in the community, tend to sell at higher amounts, um, by 2.5, 3x. Like there's so many different vectors that we pull. So I do think that that's important. But if you can just, for me, I'm like, I have to do this because if I can get this done, then I can justify and have fun playing in here.
Mhm.
So anyway, that's
Yeah.
I mean, I want to do this all the time, but if I don't do this, then no one will let me do this.
You're not your job. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. No, I think that's one of the things that it's interesting. I have people like, okay, great. So what are we going to measure? Engagement. I'm like, yeah, that's great. We'll start with that, but let's start with your business outcomes. And then, we walk through all of it. And it's like, okay, we have to have business outcomes. Let's measure them now. And I work with a lot of earlier stage startups. So I'm like, can I see your CSATs and your NPS and your all these things? And many of them don't have that yet. So it's almost like we got to baseline you
Yeah,
and
true.
then align that to business outcomes we want later on. And then we can go do, or I can go do all the fluffy stuff and create
Mhm.
connections and all of
Mhm.
that. So completely agree with you.
Yeah. Because
Okay,
in
I'm
gray
just gonna.
skies, people are going to ask those questions.
Oh yeah,
You know?
and just setting expectations that you will not put anything on a board slide for 18 months. Otherwise
Yeah,
you're definitely not having. I will not meet your expectations for sure.
true. True.
Yep. Well, what's as we kind of wrap up here, what is one takeaway or one action item that someone's like, oh man, I what Nisha's talking about, like that's me.
Mhm.
What might you give them some advice to that might want to help them build on that superpower?
Yeah, I mean, you talk about having your superpower, but I always say like it's a skill based economy. As people don't care what companies that you've worked at so much as what role have you done and have you done that really well. And so, hone into those skills. First, take your superpower and understand what are the different roles that can really make an impact, that you could make an impact in, where you get to use that superpower all the time. And then join different groups and communities and meet other people that are in those. If you're early in your career, spend time and meet other people that are like that. And they say birds of a feather flock together. So who's your flock, who's in your flock, and learn from them. And then if you're like, okay, after spending a lot of time with this group, I'm not really interested, then you can move on. But if you're like, wow, this is really cool, I love what they're doing, I could totally run circles around all this, then you should then really invest and really take the time and look for roles that are in that, and in that specific like the that or have an interest to you in a field that you like, or um, maybe like a burgeoning technology that you think is really interesting. But it's not about, and I say this to people all the time because I think people can get really stuck on, I really need to be in this one industry. I really love this one thing. I'm like, I think what brings people joy is doing things that they love. And that's a skill. Like
Mhm.
that's what people hire for. People don't care if I did community. They don't care where I've done community. They just care that I've done community. They want that somewhere else. Um, and if you happen to like their product, they're like, great, thumbs up, glad you like it. But we want you for your skills. So nurture your skills. It's a skill-based economy. Learn as much as you can. Always have that learning growth mindset. Every time in my career that I have shut that part down and I was like, this is how we should do it. We need to be this way. And I wasn't open. I was the least happy personally and the least successful.
Mm.
And I did that because I was insecure. I was insecure and I just wanted to fall back on what I knew instead of having an open mindset and learning from others and learning from other people. And when I do that now, I'm like, people, I feel like I'm like a different person. Like people want to share, people want to tell you things, people know that you're there to help them. You get so much more accomplished. It's great.
Yeah. Something you said made me think of a conversation I had with Ravi Rajani. And he said, like, we have these conversations and, said joining groups and finding where you find affinity and things like that is like, our personalities, et cetera, like we attract and repel. So we will naturally bring towards us the things that are, like that we need. And, the people that like, I'm not their cup of tea, then that's okay because that's just part of me, you know what I mean? Like having the right people around me, et cetera. So I think that's just kind of a little bit goes into what you were talking about there as well.
Yeah.
Nisha, this has been such a terrific episode. I really appreciate you taking the time to tell your story and your superpower and tell us all about the amazing Gong community. I assume we can find you on LinkedIn, or is that the best place for people to find you
Yeah,
to learn more?
that's a great place. I'm sad this podcast is over. I really enjoyed speaking with you. This was really fun.
Oh, I do. This was amazing. This was really great. So I appreciate you. You're just like a really fun guest. So thank you so much. Listeners, thank you so much for listening this week. We will see you again next week with a brand new episode of the People Power Community Podcast.